Welcome to another episode of Plead Your Case, WCTV's only national sports show. I'm your host, Riley Holsinger, and I'm joined alongside Jeremiah Miller, Ed DiOrio, and Jared Wiker. We'll be previewing the World Series, discussing the Big Ten and Pac-12 returning to the gridiron, and an NFL recap through Week 6. Sticking with the NFL, our first topic is about the Pittsburgh Steelers. On Sunday, the Steelers dominated the Cleveland Browns 38-7. Are the Steelers really good, or have they played an easy schedule thus far? Jared, it's time to plead your case.
All right, well, the Steelers definitely a great start to the season, and I was very skeptical for Big Ben going into the season, but I think he's proven that he still has it. He's able to lead the team. But I do see the Steelers losing the next 2 weeks. I think the Titans are going to be able to get to him. Derrick Henry is an absolute problem running the field, and also to the Ravens in Baltimore. But in terms of the rest of the season, I think the Steelers are able to hang on, go 14-2, thanks to a very easy schedule. But I think they'll have a close game against the Browns later in the season. But Steelers are looking very good.
I just want to put it on the record that before, on the first episode of the semester on this show, I said that the Steelers were going to go 12-4, and everybody looked at me like I had 5 eyes instead of the 4 that I actually do. This team has been legitimate, and they've shown it. I didn't even predict them to go undefeated to start the season through 5 games. This team leads the NFL in sacks, and they already have their bye week. That's insane. TJ Watt has a higher defensive rating according to Pro Football Focus than a guy by the name of Aaron Donald. So I'd say he's in pretty good company and playing his best football. A Defensive Player of the Year candidate for sure. And this offense has been so productive, I think. That was the biggest doubt. Going back to Jared's point, that's why a lot of national media coverage had them at a 9-17, because a lot of skepticism was on this offensive unit. They didn't know what they were going to get out of Big Ben returning. They didn't know what they were getting out of James Conner. They weren't know what they were going to get out of a young receiving core that with their leading receiver or their number one guy, Juju Smith-Schuster, being kind of struggling last year. What have you gotten? 3 100-yard rushing games out of James Conner. Big Ben has been one of the most efficient quarterbacks so far this season, and Chase Claypool is getting comparisons to Calvin Johnson. Plus, this offensive line doesn't have Dave DeCastro for most of the season thus far. When they get him back, this could be a special type of season for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Absolutely, and that's what I was going to say. Rookie guard Kevin Dotson is rated the highest graded interior lineman in all the NFL. And that's a big thing, too. You don't just replace a guy like David DeCastro like that. But you basically hit everything I was going to say. Ben Roethlisberger, best efficient start in his whole career so far this year. Looking like an MVP caliber player. Like you mentioned, Chase Claypool, exceeding all expectations so far. Like you mentioned, Calvin Johnson. I said when he was drafted, he reminded me of a little bit speedier Plexico Burress, but he's already surpassed what Plexico did in his long career. And that defense, scary good. We'll see how they do with Devin Bush's injury, how they replace that. That defense is scary good. You mentioned TJ Watt. Minka Fitzpatrick, we wondered where he was. It didn't take too long for Baker Mayfield to find him on Sunday. This Steelers defense is scary, and this Steelers team is a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, one of my biggest concerns with the Pittsburgh Steelers at the beginning of the season was their skill players, because heading into the season, they had one of the youngest skill groups in the NFL. I mean, not really a lot of proven guys. You have James Conner, who's had one solid season so far in the NFL, and Juju Smith-Schuster, who's been pretty much a number 2 receiver in Pittsburgh. I wouldn't say he's played like a number 1 receiver. But the Steelers probably won't go undefeated. The only team to go 16-0 was the New England Patriots back in 2007. So, Jared, you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. The Steelers play 2 teams in the next 2 weeks with a combined record of 10-1. Where do you see the Steelers losing?
Well, I did mention before, I do see them losing to the Titans next week and the Ravens the following week, mainly just because it's in Baltimore, but I think the Steelers will be able to split. The Steelers defense, big loss with Devin Bush, as we mentioned, but the Baltimore Ravens are just a really good team. Lamar Jackson, I think, is due for a little bit of a resurgence here. He struggled a little bit in the beginning of the season, but 14-2 for the Steelers. I have them for the rest of the season.
Ed, what about you?
I would have to see 3 losses on this schedule. 1 to Baltimore coming in 2 weeks, 1 to Tennessee this week, and then it's got to be the Buffalo Bills. Those 3 of those games all on the road. I don't see 1 home loss for this Pittsburgh Steelers team yet. They are clicking on all cylinders now that they got some fans back. That just only helps. And this team is obviously going on the back of Ben Roethlisberger, as you said, Jeremiah. Obviously, I wasn't going to predict them. I don't think any of us were going to predict them to finish out a full 16-game slate with an unblemished record. But this team, going off of what Jeremiah said, Super Bowl contender to the max.
Yeah, absolutely, Ed. I see this team losing this week to Tennessee. I think Tennessee with Derrick Henry will take advantage of not having Devin Bush back there in the middle for the Steelers. That'll be interesting to see how that plays out for sure. I also agree with you. I think all three losses are the teams you mentioned, at Baltimore, at Buffalo, at Tennessee. I don't see these teams lose, or I don't see the Steeler team losing at home this season at all. I think that I know there's not a lot of fans there. There's still, I think max capacity is 5,500, but that's all you need from Steeler Nation to really get in the mindset of an away team. So you mentioned and I mentioned, I really think this team is a Super Bowl contender for sure.
Yeah, I don't know where the Steelers are going to pick up their first loss for me, but I definitely think it's going to happen within the next 2 weeks, just because it's going to be some interesting matchups. The Titans, more of a run-first team, and the Steelers, their run defense is one of the top in the NFL. And then you look at Baltimore, too, with Lamar Jackson, the MVP of last year. He's just a big running quarterback as well, so it's going to be stop those two players. If I had to pick one, though, I'd like to say that I think that the Steelers would lose to the Ravens in 2 weeks. Now, let's talk about the loss of Devin Bush to the defense for the Steelers. A huge loss going down. How is this going to affect them in the future, in the next couple of weeks and throughout the rest of the season, Jeremiah?
Well, I think it's going to be huge, but it's a matter of replacing him for this season for sure. Robert Spillane did really good in coming in off the bench against Cleveland. He had a really productive game. Things I've been looking at and hearing around, maybe the Steelers go out and take advantage of one of these only one-win teams or teams that haven't won a game yet. I look at Atlanta, Deion Jones in the middle for them. I look at the Jets. They have Avery Williamson. The Jets obviously right now look like the worst team maybe in NFL history with Adam Gase leading it right there. So those are two things I look at. The Steelers are going to have to do something if one of those guys like Spillane doesn't step up and produce. And we're not expecting him to produce to Devin Bush caliber. We're not expecting him to produce a top 10 talent like Devin Bush, but some productivity. He's got a great defense around him, so it shouldn't be that hard to find a replacement.
The biggest difference with Bob Spillane for me is that why did the Steelers go get Devin Bush, right? They've always had trouble covering tight ends. The game has evolved into an elite tight end targeted offensive league. And who are the safeties? Let's go way back. Let's go back, I shouldn't say way back. Back to the year the Steelers went 13-3 and played Jacksonville in the divisional round. We all know how that game ended, but one of the most crucial games in that season was the Patriots game where Rob Gronkowski went and just went up and down the field. Who were the safeties? Sean Davis and Mike Mitchell, right? Obviously, Ryan Shazier was the middle linebacker, but now the two safeties are Terrell Edmonds, who's been playing very well this season, and Minkah Fitzpatrick, who we saw his impact on Sunday against Cleveland. Robert Spillane has help all around him. He's going to get acclimated. I think he's going to struggle this week against Tennessee, and that's why I predict them to lose. But we saw it off the bench. He was very productive. I think Robert Spillane is going to be a good part of this defense. And if they do trade for an inside linebacker, him and Vince Williams, who's also been playing some of the best ball of his life this season, I'm excited still to see what the Steeler defense can produce.
Yeah, I agree with what these guys said. Devin Bush is sideline to sideline linebacker, really fast. It's going to be hard to replace. I do think the Steelers should probably look at their options on who would be available to trade for.
Yeah, the only team to ever have a perfect season in the 16-game format was the 2007 New England Patriots. The Steelers have a long way to go potentially to hopefully join them. That's all for this segment on Plead Your Case. The NFL season has been flying by, but the saying is, time flies by when you're having fun. And I don't know about you guys, but this season has been very enjoyable for me. We're already in week 7, but it's time to recap the first 6 weeks of the season. Ed, who has been your biggest disappointment thus far?
My biggest disappointment has been the Minnesota Vikings. If I can, in the Halloween spirit, dress up for a second and act like the Vikings GM, there's one move that I have to make, and that is to dump quarterback Kirk Cousins. This guy has been a waste ever since he became the Minnesota starting quarterback. Case Keenum was the last quarterback to get them to the NFC Championship game. That tells you all you need to know. Kirk Cousins only has 3 playoff appearances, and only last year did he advance further than 1 round in that 1 playoff game. So Kirk Cousins has been a waste, obviously of money and obviously of time. He's 32. There's no need to have him for the next 3 years of his contract. I know it would be a bad give up to send him somewhere. Some team will take him. And that is why they need to jump in on the sweepstakes tank for Trevor. Minnesota could do it. I don't think the Jets will go winless. I think they will win at least 1 game. I'm not saying 2, but I don't think they'll go winless. So I think Minnesota is very much in the tank for Trevor sweepstakes, but they have to get rid of Kirk Cousins to be a part of it for sure.
The Vikings are certainly an interesting pick, but I'm going to go with the Atlanta Falcons. Now, I mean, this isn't really a huge disappointment, I guess you could say, but I mean, really, when you think about how old Matt Ryan is and the core of that group, it is a disappointment. The team's 1-5. Like I said, Matt Ryan, you still got Julio Jones there, Calvin Ridley, a young guy, and signing Todd Gurley, they took a gamble with him. He hasn't really paid off too well for the team. So, I mean, Atlanta's sitting at 1-5, especially in the division. In the NFC South, you got Brady and Breeze right above you. Even the Panthers at 3-3, a better record and start to the season than the Falcons. It's a waste for the Falcons, the 2020 season.
I like both your guys' pick, but for my most disappointing of the season, I have not one team, but a whole division. That is the NFC East. This whole division is awful. I mean, you look from, you could say, top to bottom. The Cowboys are 2-4. They lead the division right now. Then you go to the Eagles, who are only there because they have a tie. And then, of course, the Giants and the Washington football team. That shows you how pathetic this division is. The Washington doesn't even have a nickname. They're just the football team. Just been pathetic. And the sad part is, guys, one of these teams is going to host an NFC playoff game. That is absolutely a disgusting thought. My biggest disappointment is the NFC East, or you could say the NFC least.
And it's a shame because a team like Chicago, who could also be one of the biggest shocks of the NFL season early thus far, if a team like that, they deserve to host a playoff game, but they're only going to be a wild card spot because of how Green Bay has been playing. So, I mean, I know Chicago still leads that division, but I don't see them keeping it. But 5-1, I don't see them not making the playoffs at this point. That's a heck of a start through 6 games. And, you know, Matt Nagy has been showing that he's one of the best coaches in this league after the Bears went 12-4. I know they didn't finish the playoffs that year very strong. Doink, doink. But Matt Nagy is still proven he's a good coach with 2 just putrid quarterbacks, if you ask me.
And I'm with you, Ed. I mean, I think the NFL should really take a look at the playoff format after this season in the NFC East. I mean, really, I think they should just go to a format where the top teams host the games, and then the rest, you fill in the rest with the teams with not as good records. I mean, the fact, like you said, Jeremiah, that one of those teams is going to host a game is just ridiculous, in my opinion. I think it's a slap on the face to other good teams that will be in wild card spots that will have better records.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of you guys about your disappointing teams. The NFC East has been very disappointing thus far, and I mean, it could be possible for a team in the NFC East to go 6-10 and potentially make a playoff spot, which would be ridiculous for the league. So my 2 disappointments so far are the 49ers at the beginning of the season. I had them penned down as like a potential Super Bowl team again, along with the Chiefs. And then my AFC disappointing team, I had the Denver Broncos. A lot of hype around the young offense this year. So let's go with your guys' biggest surprise. Ed, you mentioned the Chicago Bears a little bit earlier. They were one of my biggest surprised teams, and then along with them, I had the Seattle Seahawks. So let's go back to you here. Is it still the Bears for you?
For me, it's a combination of the Bears, and I picked them to be good this season, but you know that's only a prediction. So now that they've come through and supported my argument up until this point, it's the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals have shown that with Kyler Murray in that offense, they are clicking on all cylinders. I know they had an impressive Monday night win against Dallas. It was against Dallas, but still, 38-10 is a convincing win on the road. And this Arizona team, aside from a bad loss to the Detroit Lions at home, this team has been proven that they are in every game. And Kyler Murray has proven why he is not only not not only is he avoiding a sophomore slump, he is gaining attention in the MVP race, if you ask me.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I'm going to go back. My biggest surprise so far is the Chicago Bears, and here's why. Offense has really been lackluster this year. I mean, they've used 2 quarterbacks. You know, you look at Mitchell Trubisky, who might be looking for a job next year, and Nick Foles as well. You know, really this defense has just put this team on their back, led by Khalil Mack, only giving up 19 points a game. They haven't really done anything offensively. Their only one shining spot on offense is Allen Robinson, a wide receiver. He's right up there, top 10 in receiving yards in the NFL thus far. But other than that, it's really been this defensive led by Khalil Mack and Eddie Jackson in the secondary.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you, Jeremiah. It's certainly the Chicago Bears. Great defense, and also I think Nick Foles will be able to step it up for the rest of the season.
Yeah, who would have predicted that the Chicago Bears would have done this well so far this season? For me, another surprising team is the Tennessee Titans, and then a team that Ed mentioned, the Arizona Cardinals. They've been playing very well thus far. 4-2, a sleeper in the AFC or in the NFC West, one of the toughest divisions in my opinion. I always look forward to talking with you guys about the NFL. And I wish we could talk about it longer, but sadly, we'll be going to a PSA break. When we come back, we'll be talking about the Big Ten and Pac-12. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Plead Your Case.
It's a Saturday night. You know what that means. Time to party. Sam is having a good time, watching sports, drinking beer, playing Pong. Not a care in the world for Sam. Nobody at the party stops Sam. They let him walk out the door with his keys, even though he was stumbling, having a hard time to stand up. What happened less than 10 minutes later would change Sam's life forever.
The Big Ten and Pac-12 football seasons are coming back shortly, and we are coming back from break to talk about it. The Big Ten hits the gridiron this Saturday, and the Pac-12 returns next week. Jeremiah, who is your pick to win the Big Ten and why?
Well, my pick is the Penn State and Indy Lions, and here's why. I think everyone's talking about Ohio State coming back this year. They bring back Justin Fields. That's all fine and dandy, but I really think this Penn State team, I think they're due. I think they're due to finally beat Ohio State. They got them at home. Now, I realize there won't be 110,000 screaming Penn State fans in Beaver Stadium, but it's still hard to play at Happy Valley, so that's why I have Penn State beating Ohio State. They have Sean Clifford, who I think going into this season is a sleeper to win the Heisman. I truly do. They have one of the best young freshman wide receivers in the country, and Parker Washington coming in. I think by the time this is all said and done, I think this kid's the best wide receiver in the Big Ten, and that's saying something considering Ohio State just got Julian Fleming out of Southern Columbia High School and Jackson Smith and Jigba from Texas to go to Ohio State, where if you look all around, those two guys were 1 and 2 in the country in their respective class. That's saying something. Now, Penn State is going to be hurting a little bit on that defense. Obviously, All-American Micah Parsons opting out of the season. That's going to be a big hit. He's obviously a top 10 pick in this coming NFL draft. And then as of yesterday, you know, starting running back Journey Brown, he might be out with a medical condition for the season, so that's unfortunate. But Penn State has a very good All-American running back there in Noah Cain. So I think it's really going to be the Noah Cain show. We saw him, a glimpse of him, how good he can be as a freshman last year. You know, you look at the Iowa game. He got all but one carry in that second half against Iowa and had over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. I really think this Penn State team, I really think this is their year to upend Ohio State and not only win the Big Ten title, but make the playoff.
The last time a Penn State team was led by an All-American running back like Noah Cain, it was Saquon Barkley. That team did not make the playoff with him, and nor are they going to make it this year, nor should any Big Ten team make it at all. It's obviously the Ohio State Buckeyes are my favorite going in. They have the second best quarterback prospect arguably in this draft, and that's Justin Fields. But the biggest thing is that, and this is another thing I said previously on the show, is that this is a shortened season for the Big Ten. If Ohio State goes undefeated and runs the table and wins the Big Ten, they're going to get into the playoffs, and it will infuriate me because they did not have as many chances to lose as some of the other teams did. I know it's not going to matter because Clemson is beating everybody by more than 3 touchdowns every game, and I don't think that's going to change. But Ohio State gave Clemson their best game last year other than when LSU beat them in the national championship game. So Ohio State is one of those teams that, yes, maybe could give Clemson a game. Clemson does look like they're on a different level this year. But as far as if we're talking about the Big Ten strictly, I have to go with the Buckeyes of Ohio State. And I I don't know. I don't see it with Penn State, mainly because I don't trust Sean Clifford as a quarterback.
And that's fair. I really don't. I think the ACC is a very weak Power 5 conference. Now, don't get me wrong, Clemson, they're one of the best teams in the country. But I really look at if you look at the wins that Ohio State or Penn State will have against their opponents like Michigan, Michigan State, Nebraska, I really think those wins will look better than Clemson beating Georgia Tech, putting up 70 on them. That's a joke. No one's going to touch Clemson in the ACC, as no one does. But I don't see how that should be a factor for the Big Ten when they have a harder schedule for sure. I mean, and you can't use the statement that they've had less chances to win. I mean, you have teams like Coastal Carolina who are ranked right now, and you have teams that, you have the most I think ACC has 8 schools ranked right now. That's the most.
They've played the games.
And I get that. That's right. But if this was a regular season, we have to realize this hasn't been a normal year by any means. But I think if the Big Ten were playing right now, you'd see that many Big Ten teams ranked, not the the ACC playing.
We're at a stalemate. Jared, I got to see whose side you're on.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely siding with you, Ed, on this one.
thank
Jeremiah, unfortunately, you have missed the mark big time. Ohio State is still the favorite in that conference, and Sean Clifford at the quarterback, we've heard of Clifford the Big Red Dog. Well, unfortunately, he's not winning the Heisman. He's going to be Clifford the Big Red Goof. And as far as that the Noah Kane show for Penn State, not going to happen. We've seen Penn State time and time choke it away. They're not going to make the playoffs. And I also agree with you, Ed. No Big Ten team should make the playoffs.
Neither should any Pac-12 team.
I completely agree with both of you, Ed and Jared. I think Ohio State is going to win the Big Ten. Not any other team has really proved to me lately that any team can go ahead and beat Ohio State. I don't think Penn State, I don't think Michigan's going to do it. So let's quickly go over to the Pac-12. Who do you guys think is going to win the Pac-12 and why? Jeremiah, let's start with you.
Just simple. I think it's Oregon. They return a ton off that talented Rose Bowl champion team last year. They don't have Justin Herbert, but I think it'll be an easy replacement for them. I just don't see how the Ducks don't win the Pac-12.
Yeah, I also have the Ducks. I mean, they're still the favorite to me. They've been pretty much running the Pac-12 for a lot of years now. I don't see them doing anything different this season.
Ed?
Give me USC. That's it.
I agree with you. I think USC is going to win the Pac-12 as well. The Big Ten and Pac-12 football seasons may be returning soon, but we're heading to a break. When we come back, the guys will be previewing the World Series. You're watching Plead Your Case.
We're going to fade up to camera 3 in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, take it.
Whoever wins the World Series will win their city's second major championship over the past couple of months, as the Tampa Bay Lightning won the Stanley Cup and the Los Angeles Lakers won the NBA Finals. In Game 1, the Los Angeles Dodgers defeated the Tampa Bay Rays 8-3. Jared, what were your thoughts on Game 1?
Well, my overall thoughts were pretty much that it's about time Clayton Kershaw and the Los Angeles Dodgers find some success in the World Series. I mean, I'm honestly very happy for the Dodgers. Of course, it makes me sad as a Red Sox fan to see Mookie Betts lighting it up with the Dodgers. But again, for Kershaw, 6-inning pitched, 1 earned run, 8 strikeouts, and only 1 walk. I mean, I really hope the Dodgers are able to pull this out. The Rays are putting up a fight, though, and I think they will be able to. We're going to touch on it later, but they're really proving a point for small market teams. But for the Dodgers, I mean, they just need to hold on here and get 3 more wins.
You know, the Rays pitching has been the biggest reason why they're in this World Series, but the Dodgers have the exact same thing. It's hard to get much better than Clayton Kershaw and Walker Buehler when you have a shortened rotation come the MLB postseason, and that's exactly what the Dodgers are having their way with. At least they did in Game 1. You mentioned Kershaw's performance. That offense, their lineup 1 through 9 is just better than the Tampa Bay Rays, and that just goes with the amount of talent that is bought and acquired versus what has been grown as opposed to the Tampa Bay Rays. And so, not that Tampa's not going to give the Dodgers a series. I predict the Dodgers in 6. But Game 1, if you were to take this series and how I think it's going to go in a nutshell, I would take that Game 1 how it went because it was close throughout the first 5 innings and then the Dodgers opened it up. So I see the Dodgers coming out on top in this series mainly because the talent overload I think is just going to be too much. Plus, you're right. Clayton Kershaw was bound to be successful in the postseason eventually.
Yeah, that was my biggest takeaway from last night was Clayton Kershaw, especially early on. You know, in the first inning, Tampa really got a hold of him, and he got out of a jam. Didn't give up any runs in that first inning, and that really was the setting point for what was going to take place the rest of the night. Obviously, it took a couple innings for the Dodgers bats to get rolling, but when you got Cody Bellinger batting and smacking one into deep right field, you know, that's going to light the fire under the team's bats. But my biggest takeaway, Clayton Kershaw finally having success, not only in the playoffs, but in the World Series. 6 really strong innings, only 1 earned run. It was good to see one of the best pitchers of our era finally have his success in the postseason for sure.
Yeah, I completely agree with all three of you guys, especially you, Ed. The Dodgers right now, to me, they look like they're a team on a mission right now. It looks like there's a fire under them after getting so close to winning the World Series 2 years in a row. And the Dodgers, I think they're going to end up winning this. Jared, who do you think is going to win the World Series?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The Dodgers are just a loaded team. They're stacked, and I see them beating the Rays quite handily. I'll agree with you at 6 games.
Yep, I said Dodgers in 6.
I'm going to say Dodgers in 5. I think 1 through 9. I agree. 1 through 9, they're just a way better ball team than Tampa Bay. I'm going to say LA in 5. I think they're due. 3rd time's a charm.
So let's talk hypotheticals here. If the Rays end up winning the World Series, what does it mean for small market teams? Ed, let's go to you.
It means that absolutely nothing is going to change when it comes to baseball because the owners and Major League Baseball will finally be able to say, you have no room to complain if you're a small market team about, they have too much money and we have no money, because a team with one of the lowest payrolls in baseball is going to win the ultimate prize. So that's what baseball wants. Baseball wants the Rays to win this World Series. That way they can just stick it to teams like the Pirates and the Athletics and say, quit complaining and do your job right.
Yes, certainly. And going off the pure numbers for the total payroll, the Rays, 3rd lowest in the MLB, $28.3 million. And also shout out to the Yankees, who couldn't even get an ALCS win, the highest in baseball, with over $109 million. I mean, it proves you cannot buy teams, you cannot buy wins in the postseason. I mean, and I think it will be a success for the Rays to prove that Moneyball still works.
Yeah, I don't think much will change at all because 2-3 years from now, the Rays won't be able to sign their guys because teams like the Red Sox, like the Dodgers, like the Yankees are going to pay them more money that they can't afford. So I think this changes absolutely nothing, like Ed mentioned. I just think baseball will never change, at least in my lifetime.
Thank you, Ed, Jared, and Jeremiah, for your input. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you for tuning in to Plead Your Case, and be sure to tune in to WCTV every other week for its only national sports talk show.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.